Welcome into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL NewsRadio, your legacy home of the Cougars. It's a Football Friday, game day eve as BYU prepares to take on the Texas Tech Red Raiders in the Big 12 Football Championship. And let's not waste any time. Let's dive into the game in our game preview, which will be our top story of the day here on Cougar Tracks.
The top story of the day. The biggest story in the world of BYU sports right here on Cougar Tracks.
Number 11 BYU versus number 4 Texas Tech in the Big 12 Football Championship. BYU arrived in Texas last night on a Thursday night, which I think's a good move by the Cougars. Texas Tech flew in today on Friday. As of this show, about an hour or so ago, they took off from Lubbock for DFW in the Metroplex. But I like that BYU kind of adjusted their schedule this time around because, remember, the last meeting in Lubbock against Texas Tech, that too was also a 10 a.m. body clock game, 11 a.m. Central, but they didn't arrive until Friday night. So they get into Texas on Thursday night, get a little bit of extra time. They're going to walk around AT&T Stadium on Friday, get a feel for the environment, the stadium. It's a spectacle. Jerry's World is still a massive setting for a huge event. That's one of those venues that you look at and say big-time sporting events are played there, and the Big 12 Championship game is definitely one of the biggest events, and it's one of the biggest games in BYU football history. And what's interesting about this game is that BYU, I think, rides into this contest with a lot of momentum. Since the last time that they played Texas Tech, they lost that game 29-7. BYU has strung together 3 consecutive double-digit victories to finish the regular season at 11-1. And then you pair that with the fact that their head coach, Kalani Sitake, signed a long-term extension, turned down the overtures from Blue Blood Penn State. I think this team's riding pretty high. Speaking of Penn State, Matt Campbell, Iowa State coach, expected to potentially be the Penn State head coach, according to the report. So we'll see where that goes. So Kalani's move not only is a positive impact on BYU, but it also hurt a Big 12 foe in the future. So in the conference. So that's kind of an interesting development there on the Penn State front. But this game is massive for BYU, and it's going to be a tall task. I was looking at some of the stats and preparing for this game over the course of the week. Texas Tech is only the 6th team in the past 100 years of college football since 1925 to win at least 11 regular season games by at least 20 points. They joined Nebraska in 1971, Florida in 2008, Florida State in 2013, Alabama 2018, and Ohio State 2019. The Red Raiders currently lead the nation with an average margin of victory of 35.2 points, ahead of Indiana, who's number 2 in the country, defeating teams by an average of 33 points a game. Safe to say this Texas Tech team is elite. They are dominant. I would argue they might be the second best team in college football. At the low end, I think they're 3. I think Indiana, I think there's a real case that Indiana's number 1, Texas Tech, and Ohio State, however you want to split it. So, again, this is a tall task in front of BYU, but if you're truly a playoff team, and I believe BYU is, and Cougar Nation does as well, and it's been great to see BYU's social media admin finally going in on the national narrative and kind of sarcastically going, oh, yeah, leaving BYU out once again, huh? Why is that? But they got to show up. They got to deliver. Because I think sometimes with BYU, I think they're a little bit reserved on attacking the narratives because they don't want to have the letdown moment. But in this spot, you've been an excellent team. You're at game 13. You're in the Big 12 championship game. Whatever happens on Saturday doesn't take away from the fact that this is a really good football team. But if you want to combat the narratives nationally that BYU is just a fluke and that they're not that good and they're a byproduct of a weak conference, show up and play some ball at a high level against Texas Tech. And it's going to be tough. The last time they played Texas Tech, they had 0 interceptions in that game, and I bring that up because BYU is a team that's outstanding in turning the ball over for opposing offenses. Baron Moore, the quarterback for Texas Tech, he didn't throw any picks against BYU. This season, BYU's had 16 interceptions this year. There's only been 2 games this year where they haven't picked off an opposing offense. That was Portland State and Texas Tech. Portland State, that was a no big deal there. That was a 69-0 beatdown. But the Texas Tech game, they just couldn't get those momentum-changing plays. And that's going to be key for BYU in this contest. And one of those guys that is synonymous with coming up with big interceptions. He is a co-leader in interceptions this year. That's Tanner Wall. He's got 4 picks this season. He laid out why he thinks this time could be a lot different for BYU against Texas Tech.
Just in talking from a defensive perspective on our defensive staff, a lot of those coaches have had rematch games in their careers, and the way that we're preparing for this game, and the mindset that we're taking with us down to Arlington, we're expecting to go in there and play our best ball. And I just think from our perspective, we want it a lot more. Like, this means so much to us and to our coaches and to our program and to our fans. And so we're going to go out there and execute. And we got a lot of belief and trust in all of our guys and know that we're going to play our best.
The want in this matchup is kind of an interesting storyline, too. You would think on the surface, does Texas Tech want this game bad enough? I think they do, because they haven't won a Big 12 title ever. This is their first time in this championship game. It would mean a lot to Texas Tech. They haven't won an outright conference title since 1955 when they were in the Border Conference. They split some Southwest Conference titles, so I think they want this one badly, and I think they want a first-round bye in the college football playoff. And for BYU, the want is clearly there, because this is a stage and a spectacle that BYU has been dreaming of for so many years. Guys like Tanner Wall, growing up a diehard BYU football fan, he probably only dreamed of these scenarios in video games with BYU, and now he gets to be part of it, and he's a first-team All-Big 12 performer for the Cougars, which was pretty great to see, too. And it was great to see BYU getting respected in the Big 12 awards. Kalani Sitake earning Coach of the Year, L.J. Martin Offensive Player of the Year, Bear Bachmeier Offensive Freshman of the Year. So the Cougars well represented in the awards of this conference, which is a really good conference, and they're going up against a veer-and-shoot Texas Tech offense that didn't have a first-team selection offensively, which was kind of interesting, even though they're the highest-scoring offense in the Big 12 at 43.2 points per game. What's exciting, though, about BYU's defense, 12 quarterback hurries a week ago. They've been averaging over the last 3 games 3 sacks per game, including 4 sacks against Barron Morton and Texas Tech in Lubbock. So can they get home, maybe generate a forced fumble? That would be huge. For the offensive side, why does Chase Roberts think this could be different this time around against Tech? This was Chase Roberts.
Like, looking at the film, honestly, and the mistakes that we made, they're so fixable. We're able to fix those this week, and we're very confident, as an offense at least. I know the defense is the same. They're in the film room every day doing their thing, but we've seen a lot of things that have brought a lot of confidence. And obviously we need to execute, but there was a lot of dumb things and mistakes that we made as an offense. Guys were banged up. Kids were coming back from injury. And I feel like right now we have the confidence in all of our guys, the scheme, to go execute and to go score a lot of points.
Scoring a lot of points against Texas Tech will be a tall task. The Red Raiders have only given up 100 points in Big 12 play this season. That's the fewest points allowed by a Big 12 team since 2009 Nebraska, when the Huskers had Ndamukong Suh. This is an elite defense for Texas Tech, but BYU's offense, how do they attack the Red Raiders? Let's talk about that next, and I'll also give you my score prediction here on Cougar Tracks on this game day eve, getting you ready for BYU versus Texas Tech, right here on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports YouTube page. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports YouTube page. Mitch Harper with you here, and kickoff tomorrow for BYU and Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship game takes place at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Pregame begins at 8 o'clock tonight, though. Here on KSL, we'll have a special preview show from 7 to 9 p.m. Mountain Time here from Arlington, Texas, as we get you ready for BYU and Texas Tech. So be on the lookout for that here on KSL News Radio. So I talked about it on the previous segment. How does BYU's offense attack Texas Tech in this defense, which is so good. David Bailey, even though he's a little bit banged up, he's probable on the availability report. He is a game changer. And then Jacob Rodriguez, of course, who's being touted for the Heisman Trophy. And why not? I think Joey McGuire, the Texas Tech head coach, makes a great argument. There's no quarterback that's been spectacular in college football this year. Why not Jacob Rodriguez, someone that's doing things that we just don't typically see from a linebacker? I'm on board with it. Let's get weird. Let's get crazy. I'm okay with Jacob Rodriguez being at least a finalist for the Heisman, and why not let him win the thing? Because honestly, I don't think the quarterbacks in college football this year, no one has just made you say, absolutely, that guy's number one. So Jacob Rodriguez is a game changer, and he had 2 takeaways against BYU in the last meeting in Lubbock. He is a special talent. So BYU's offense, I think, they've got to have some semblance of a ground attack. L.J. Martin, the offensive player of the year in the Big 12, all the focus is going to be on him, of course, for Texas Tech. The Max Protect offense in Lubbock back on November 8th, it just simply didn't work for BYU at all. Remember the week after against TCU, Kalani's like, we can't just solely go Max Protect. We got to let Bear throw it a bit. And in this game, Bear has got to be able to throw the football, and I think you kind of combat maybe the challenges of going up against the number 1 rush defense in college football with making some quick passes into the flat, curl routes, get the ball to Parker Kingston, Chase Roberts, and let them make some plays and get some yards after the catch. BYU has been so good this year in yards after the catch. That, to me, is an area where I think you look at and say that could be an opportunity to maybe attack Texas Tech. And hopefully that turns into some big chunk yardage plays. BYU has got to pop off a handful of chunk yardage plays because that was where that was missing in Lubbock. The complimentary football, the special teams were a mess, but you just never had any big plays at all. And the Max Protect scheme did not work. So BYU's offensive line is going to be put in some tough situations where it's one-on-one. It's Isaiah Jada versus David Bailey. And you go back to Lubbock and you think David Bailey, even though he didn't get a sack, he was everywhere. His footsteps were being heard all the time, probably for Bear Bachmeier. He was always in the zip code, pressuring and bearing down on Bear. So it's going to be tricky. And LJ's got to be, I think, in the ballpark of 80 to 100 yards. Again, it's so difficult to run on this Texas Tech defense. Sheil Wood, the defensive coordinator for Tech, he's outstanding. I think he probably should be the Broyles Award winner. He's that good. I mean, he was coming over from Houston, and that was one of the reasons I was so high on this Texas Tech team in the preseason, because I think he's one of the best coordinators in the game. He is elite with this defense, and their personnel is really good too. I think BYU's defense is really good as well. And I think BYU's defense, they've got to get some takeaways. I think they got to be +3 in turnover margin in this game. BYU's got to take care of the football on the offensive side. They've got to get to somewhat of a fast start. I think they've got to score in the first quarter. Not necessarily score first. And I think that, but BYU's got to score early in this game to almost settle the nerves, because that doubt could creep in quickly against Tech if you don't have some sort of fast start against this team. Let's give you my score prediction for this Big 12 championship game. So Cougs get ready to take on Texas Tech.
Score prediction. Will BYU come out on top? It's time for Mitch's score prediction for the next game.
I'm feeling a lot better about this game than I did the one in Lubbock. I think BYU is going to be competitive. I think BYU is going to show out well. I think BYU is going to make this a 4-quarter bout that's going to be a heavyweight fight type feel. I think this is going to be an excellent football game. But I will say this. I'm going to go with Texas Tech to win this one 23-17. I think Texas Tech scores early and gets an early lead. BYU responds, but maybe they just can't get over the hump and get that lead and take it. I think if BYU can get a lead, that could be huge in this game. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. I would probably expect more Texas Tech fans than BYU fans. BYU fans are going to have a great showing, and they're going to be heard, and you're going to see a lot of blue in the crowd. I'm going to head over to the Fan Fest tonight at Globe Life Field, but I just think that BYU and Texas Tech, the thing that's frustrating is that BYU should be automatically going to the playoff. A 6-point loss to Texas Tech, I think, would be like, yeah, BYU belongs. They're going toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in the country, and I wish that the playoff committee would respect that and say they just negated the getting outclassed bit that we talked about earlier last month as to why they were ranked behind 2 lost teams. I have no faith in the committee, so they wouldn't do that. But I think BYU is going to show well. And, I mean, it would be a discouraging loss if BYU had this happen. But I just have a lot of respect for Texas Tech. And I think going into this game, BYU is relatively healthy. Only key in need as questionable on the availability report. But I think it's a lot of just respect for Texas Tech in this game. But I think BYU is going to show a lot better in this contest against Texas Tech the second go-around. But I ultimately have Tech winning by 6, 23-17 in this game. It's tough to score on Texas Tech. This might be a game where it's 1st to 20 wins the game. I think BYU's defense is going to be tough, and they're going to be stout. They've got to be able to stop the run. Cameron Dickey, Jacoby Williams, they ran wild on BYU, averaging about 5 yards per carry in that game. And the corner shots to the Texas Tech receivers like Reggie Virgil, Coy Eakin, they've got to take that away. They didn't really give much respect to BYU's cornerbacks. So how does BYU combat those corner shots that Texas Tech was consistently taking against BYU's secondary? But it's going to be a good football game. I can't wait to watch it. I think it's going to be high-level college football on one of the biggest stages that BYU has ever played on. And for that, I think you just got to be hyped up and excited to see how this game plays out. That's going to do it for this edition of Cougar Tracks. I hope all of you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast, and also subscribe to the KSL Sports YouTube page. Like this video. Appreciate you for being on board on the show. As always, every single day we're talking BYU sports here on Cougar Tracks. We'll have full coverage from Arlington for BYU and Texas Tech on game day right here on the legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio, and it's powered by KSL Sports.